This Arch Manning news is absolutely insane.
Yards shy of the record. Williams breaks a hole. Williams, hello record book. Ricky Williams runs to the Hall of Fame. Touchback. Ricky Williams, touchdown.
Young from the shotgun. Back to throw. Vince looks. Under pressure. He'll tuck it in run. Vince to the 5. Young. Touchdown Texas. Touchdown Vince Young. He's done it again.
Longhorn Nation, we're back.
Welcome into another edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I'm your host, Matt Galatson, joined as always by my co-host, Zach Dimmitt. Zach, players met with the media today. We had Arch Manning, we had Cam Coleman, Rasheem Biles, Anthony Smith. Did I miss anybody? I mean, there was Connor Robertson and Jelani McDonald as well. So a bunch of players met with the media. But before we get into that, we got some crazy Arch Manning news. Like right before we hopped on the show, we saw this on social media from the one-on-one interview that he did with Chris Lowe of On3. And this, Zach, is it explains some things. I mean, if you thought Arch Manning was a tough guy before, wait till you hear this news. According to Chris Lowe, Arch Manning, you know, as we know, he's been limited in spring football so far due to a foot injury. But apparently, Manning told Chris Lowe that the initial injury to his foot occurred during the 2024 season against Texas A&M on his 15-yard touchdown run in the first quarter of the Longhorns' 17-7 win over the Aggies. And it was something that lingered all of last season. I mean, Zach, if we didn't have 100% of Arch Manning last year, and maybe this explains a few things. Maybe this explains why are his mechanics and his footwork a little off. Like we didn't see this last year when he was getting his starts against Mississippi State and what was the other one? ULM. We didn't see that stuff. Why is it happening all of a sudden this year? It could be this. And not only that, he played all year with a foot injury and still was running 21 miles an hour against Michigan. Like, help me out here. Am I crazy or is this nuts?
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. And I really wish that, you know, I would have thought about it, or even some of the media guys would have thought about it today when we spoke to Arch, maybe asking him, hey, when did that injury actually occur? Because he probably would have been honest about it and said that it was all the way back when the rivalry got renewed with A&M in College Station. Well, that feels like, you know, a million years ago at this point, because so much has happened. And so that's so crazy to think that was when the injury occurred. You thought maybe it was just on one of his runs, you know, against Mississippi State, whenever he got that concussion. Maybe it was then. Maybe it was sometime, you know, later in the season when Texas was pushing for that playoff spot that they ended up not getting. That is just amazing. Maybe he was in his head a little bit because of the injury against teams like Ohio State or Kentucky and things like that. Because you know that's insane to hear that news, especially right now near the end of spring football. We already knew that Arch Manning was a tough son of a gun, and I just gained so much more respect for him. I don't know about you, but I just gained so much more respect for him because, you know, when I walk down my driveway, I like twist my ankle and I'm like, you know, hurting really, really bad. And yet he's going out there playing high level football with all the pressure of the world on his shoulders. And he's still doing all that while dealing with an injury that was lingering for a while. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff. You know, I know the word crazy gets thrown around in media sometimes when it comes to headlines and whatever, but this qualifies for sure as being crazy, because I don't think anyone really knew that this was the case. But it just says a lot about Arch Manning, his toughness, and who knows, maybe Texas' season could have gone a little bit different, because as we all know, they were right on the edge of making the CFP. If a few plays go a little bit differently, you know, maybe against Florida, against Ohio State as well. I know the Georgia game was really the only, you know, major blowout. A few plays go differently, maybe Texas in the CFP, if not for Arch's injury. I guess we'll never know.
I have so many different ways I could go with this, and I'm trying to figure out where to start. number one, I think it was theoretically possible that this injury could have happened at literally any point in last season because of the amount of beatings that he took from such a subpar offensive line. So to hear that he not only had to deal with all of that, plus he had an injured foot, that's one thing. Number two, all of these, early season Arch bust, Arch sucks memes. Like, I mean, you kind of have to go back and in retrospect apply this knowledge to it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, maybe, look, like the guy was playing injured. And then there was all the stuff about, he's got a hurt shoulder because he winces when he throws the football. It's like, his shoulder was healthy. And another thing too, like props to Steve Sarkisian a little bit. He is so good at keeping these quarterback injuries under wraps. I mean, we didn't know that Quinn Ewers was playing with a torn abdominal muscle or whatever it was until well after the season was over. And, he played phenomenally well. So hopefully Arch is healthy, 100% healthy for the first time since 2024 when Texas takes the field for their season opener against Texas State. But he did mention his health as well, Zach. He said, and this is the article with Chris Lowe. He says, "I feel great. If we had a game right now, I could play." And he also said, "I do get antsy not being able to be out there the whole time with the guys. It's hard for me to watch them go through the tough practices and me not be out there. So I try to do as much as I can for them to feel my presence." Good leader, that guy. But that's not the only thing that Arch said in that interview either that I thought was incredibly interesting, Zach. This is a different realm of interesting, obviously. But he told Chris Lowe, and this obviously this has to do with his expectations. He's got more expectation behind him than any other quarterback we've ever seen, and it's been like that since he was 15 years old. But he told Chris Lowe, "I'm not going to shy away from anything," speaking about the expectations. "People are allowed to say whatever they want. It doesn't really affect me. I know where I'm going, and I know no one is going to stop me." So not only is this dude 100% healthy, not only does this dude have Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo and Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown in a brand new offensive line, but this dude is on a mission. And I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't get a little some goosebumps when I heard that quote.
Yeah, I'm actually going to leave right now and go run through a brick wall because whenever I hear that kind of stuff from Arch Manning, because last season there were times when he speaks to the media, he's kind of just keeping things as simple as he can with some of his answers. I wish he would have delivered a quote like that while speaking to us last season, because a lot of times he was just keeping it really professional. But we all know he's a fiery competitor, regardless of what he says while he's speaking to reporters. You see that competitiveness when he's on the sidelines, when he's pumping up his teammates, and so we know that fire is in him. So to really hear that, it really should get Texas fans juiced up for this upcoming season, because when a guy has that kind of expectation on his shoulders, dating back to far before he even picked Texas as his school of choice. It says a lot about him that he's really embracing all that stuff, and obviously he's used to it at this point, but wow, I'd love to hear that stuff from him. Tons of great stuff in that interview, and tons of great stuff today as well, while speaking to reporters there on campus. I know we'll talk about some of that here, but it's something I wanted to touch on is what he had to say about Parker Livingston's decision to leave for Oklahoma. There was some controversial takes there from Texas fans, thinking, did he leave on his own accord? Did he get pushed out? I guess we'll never really know, but certainly was an interesting decision that has been met with a lot of anger, I guess, from Texas fans towards Parker Livingston, because you never leave for a heated rival. You just don't. And so, Arch, he was, I kind of liked what he had to say about that too. I think he was really open and honest today while speaking with reporters, he said it did surprise him a little bit. And if you guys want to go check out what he had to say, we have a piece up on Texas Longhorns on SI if you want to go check that out. But, Arch said, I was a little bit surprised. Parker's a good guy. He's got a good family. We were roommates, so wish him the best. Can't say I would have done the same thing, but wish him all the best, except for when we play them. End quote. So Arch is saying, I wouldn't have done the same thing as Livingston. Obviously, they're in much different situations. They're much different people. But he said he was a little bit surprised. And I think a lot of people were surprised as well. And it definitely hits a little bit different for Arch because they were roommates last season. And obviously, not only were they roommates, they're quarterback wide receiver connection in the offense. So they obviously grew close. And so it was really interesting to hear what Arch had to say about that because it was definitely a controversial decision this offseason.
Yeah, and they were really close friends.
Yep.
I don't think that Arch necessarily was shading Parker Livingston. And yeah, you're right. I mean, they were much different situations. The idea that Parker Livingston made this decision entirely of his own accord is misguided.
Yeah.
In my opinion, just based on what I know. I know that he wanted more NIL money than what Texas offered him. I know that he wanted to be one of the top receivers on the roster. And that wasn't going to happen at Texas because there's a guy named Cam Coleman coming to town. Actually, wait, he's already here. So that ship sailed long ago. And in Oklahoma, he's going to have that opportunity, and I'm happy for him. Like he'll get more money, he'll get more playing time, more usage. He'll have a way worse quarterback, but that's something he's going to have to deal with on his own. That's okay. Not a John Mateer fan on this podcast. I think he's way overrated. But lots of good stuff from Arch today. I mean, we could talk about that really for this entire hour. Or for an entire hour if we wanted to, Zach, but we're going to try and cover some other things here. There is another guy who spoke to the media today for Texas, and one that I think that Texas fans have been waiting to hear from for a long time, and that is none other than Cam Coleman. And he, I'm not going to sit here and say that he was Moro Ojimo levels of explanation in candor, because, well, first of all, nobody is like Moro when it comes to speaking with the media. But second of all, he was just really short. I think that, being in front of a camera, talking to the media probably isn't his favorite thing in the world. So, he had some short answers, but there was a few interesting ones in there as well that I thought were really important. The first one was he kind of threw a little jab at Auburn. And I don't know if it was intentional or not. I mean, that's up to him. He's the only one that really knows that. But he was asked about why he left Auburn. And he said it wasn't hard. Because sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So it wasn't really hard. I mean, Auburn's a good program. They just hired a new coach who's known for explosive offenses. They got a good quarterback coming in there. So like things were set up for him to play pretty well in that system. But I don't think he felt the same way. And he mentions later that, he wants to win a national championship. He thinks he has a really good opportunity to do that at Texas. But interesting comment there from Coleman on Auburn.
Yeah, I actually asked him about that. I asked him, you're an Alabama guy, you're from the state. Was it hard to leave and pursue other opportunities? And yeah, he didn't really hesitate. He said, yeah, it wasn't hard, and certainly isn't hard to leave your hometown or your home state whenever you're getting a multi-million-dollar NIL deal. I know that wouldn't be hard for me. So that certainly plays a factor as well. We all know that, but there's multiple reasons. Obviously, NIL is one of the reasons, but Auburn has not been a competitive program on the national scale, and so being able to go to a place with a elite quarterback, with the elite coach, and then a program that's going to allow you to compete for a title, those are things that make it a little bit easier to leave your hometown as well. And not Auburn, Alabama is not his hometown, but his home state, Phoenix City, Alabama, is his hometown. Not too far of a drive though. He did say that thing he doesn't like about Austin compared to Phoenix City and compared to like Auburn is all the traffic. And Cam, I totally feel you there. It freaking sucks. Don't catch me on 35. But that's another story for another day. But that was a funny quote from him. But I do think that he was probably a little bit shy today. Some of his quotes were short and sweet. If you asked him a yes or no question, he was going to answer yes or no. And that's all on the reporters to make sure that we ask him open-ended questions to get more out of him, which I think as the season goes on this fall and as the games progress, we'll see more out of him when it comes to speaking with the media, because I think he's just probably a little bit shy and still trying to get used to things right now. So you can't really blame him too much. Same thing with Arch. I mean, kind of last season at times he would be a little bit short, but I feel like today he really, really opened up, and that's great to see. It's kind of different from like a guy like Quinn Ewers, who was intentionally short and intentionally kind of not giving a lot to the media because he wasn't really a shy guy. He just didn't really like the media too much. That's a little bit different. I think Cam will open up as things progress, and we'll hear more from him about what he likes about the offense and learn more about his personality. But he did say that Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley have been big in helping him kind of learn the offense this offseason. And this spring, I know Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley have been kind of sidelined a little bit because they had their own offseason surgeries, and Coleman has been by far the number one receiver, during live sessions. And so, but they've still been helping him, even though they've kind of started to slowly work their way back. And you like to hear that. Cam Coleman, Colin Simmons, Rasheem Biles. I'd be remiss if I'm missing some of the other names, but those three and some other guys all took a trip to Miami together. I believe like probably before spring practice. And so the chemistry is being built there. Some of the biggest stars in the team are making sure that they're building camaraderie. And so you love to see that. But yeah, I'm excited to hear from Cam Coleman later this season and kind of learn more about him, because this was the first time we've heard from him since his commitment to Texas, and how fans have really been waiting for that. And so it was really refreshing to hear from him and kind of get to know him, and excited to see what he has to say in the future as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited too. I think he'll open more up as he gets more comfortable with the Texas media, which, as being a part of it, we both know can be a little bit, it can be a lot. with some of the questions that get asked, or just being in front of that many people is it's different than being at Auburn, because at Auburn you're in front of a couple of guys from the 24/7 and on 3 and on SI sites, and probably from the Montgomery paper and the one of the other Alabama papers and stuff like that. Here it's different. And you can really feel that when you're in there. I've been in a lot of different media rooms. It's a lot different. So, that is what it is. But there was one other thing that Cam Coleman said, Zach, that I thought was pretty cool. And it's something that we've talked about a lot. I know that we talked about that stat about Cam Coleman being literally the best player in the PFF era when it comes to contested deep catches. He's caught like 81% of those catches, which is by far the best ever. And we've been wondering, will Texas open up the offense a little bit more for him than what it was like at Auburn under Hugh Freeze? And it really kind of sounded like he didn't say much, but you could kind of tell that he was excited about what was coming, because he said, I'm running way more routes. And then he was asked, will you run more deep routes here than you did at Auburn? And he just said, with kind of a little grin, I guess. And that, enough said. That means yes. I'm not going to answer that question, but that means yes, which is exciting for this Texas offense, I think, because that's really where he thrives. And we saw a little bit of that in a highlight from Texas as well, of Arch hitting Cam in the corner of the end zone on a fade route. I know that's not technically a vertical route, but anytime they put something up of Arch to Cam, people are going to go crazy, and it really hit. I do want to go back to Arch for 1 second though, Zach, because I forgot to bring this up earlier. And I am excited about this as well. He was asked about Jermaine Bishop.
Yeah.
And, what he sees in Jermaine Bishop. And he basically said, The guy's got like 80 touchdowns from 70 yards out.
Yep.
He's amazing, or something along those lines. I mean, if Arch Manning, your starting quarterback, can see how good you are as a true freshman, I feel like he's going to have I just kind of feel like there's going to be something there. I feel like Jermaine Bishop is going to have a big role on this team, whether that's just, a couple targets a game or a few targets a game. I don't know yet, but if Arch is excited about this kid, I think that means you should be excited about this kid as well. And, we'll see where that goes. But Zach, we also have some pretty big news for Texas, both in the transfer portal, which I didn't expect to hear anything this late in the spring on the transfer portal, and on the recruiting trail. So when we come back from this break, we're going to tell you exactly what's going on, because it's some pretty big news.
This episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast is brought to you by Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. Custom Built Trailers is the largest in-stock trailer dealer in Mississippi, with a variety of options to choose from flatbed goosenecks to bumper pull equipment trailers and car haulers, to enclosed trailers and basic utility trailers. We do a little bit of everything. And if we don't have exactly what you're looking for in stock, we can typically have your custom-built trailer built in 7 to 10 working days. 0% financing options are available, and we also deliver out of state. So give Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi a call at 601-722-9581 today, and let us take care of your hauling needs. Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. If we don't have it, we'll be glad to build it.
Well, Zach, more transfer portal news wasn't exactly on my bingo card on April 15th, just a few days before the spring game. But apparently, there could be something happening here pretty soon. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. But sources have told Texas Longhorns on SI.com that a Big Ten transfer linebacker is going to visit the Texas Longhorns. Darius Snow from Michigan State is going to take a visit to Austin here in the near future. He is a Frisco, Texas native. He just had his waiver clear to make him eligible to play for one more season, so that's why it's taken him so long to start taking visits and consider his options. But I mean, in terms of like needs on this team, one of the few things that we have seen, and even Will Muschamp admitted to, was that the depth at linebacker is a little bit concerning. It's talented. Rasheem Biles, Anthony Smith, Tyler Atkinson, Juice Cryer, Marcus Boswell. Even Brad Spence is considered in that group, but you'd like to have just one more experienced guy in there. It kind of feels like Darius Snow could fit that bill.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy who's going to be entering what will be his 7th season of college football, because he utilized a COVID year, a medical red shirt, a normal red shirt, and that's why he's played so many years now. I know it's not like every season has been 13 games of action, obviously, but he's been in college football for quite a long time now. Pretty crazy to think that he'll have one final season of eligibility. And I mean, I think the top of the linebacker group for Texas is really strong, but you talk about that depth. I am curious to see what Marcus Boswell can do. Obviously an Austin native who was at Akron, it was at Akron though, so not high major football. Wondering if maybe they're wanting a little bit more out of him, and maybe he's a guy who maybe won't contribute this upcoming season, but the year after more so. And maybe that's why they want to bring in a guy like Snow, who has more experience. And of course, being a Texas native, that makes it a little bit more intriguing for him. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, with Darius Snow, he offers some intriguing, traits, because he started off as a defensive back. He was a nickel back and a safety for Michigan State for 2 seasons. It wasn't like they tried him out at the position for like one off season or whatever. No, he played defensive back for 2 years before moving to linebacker. So he obviously is comfortable in pass coverage, and it's not like he's going to potentially arrive at Texas and start right away or anything like that. But a guy with that kind of versatility, you can maybe lean on that as the season goes on. If you pick up some injuries at the position, I think Tyler Atkinson and Rasheem Biles and Anthony Smith, that's a really, really strong trio right there. And then you add in a guy like Justin Cryer as well. That's a strong group. But after that, you want to have some veteran experience and a guy who like Marcus Boswell, like I mentioned, is from Texas, and so you have that hometown feel a little bit. And I think that's probably what they're looking for, is just experience and talent at the position, because we know the top of the group is really talented, but there could be questions, I guess, and we'll have to wait and see what happens here. I'm not sure. It seems like when it comes to portal guys taking visits, that typically means they're going to commit, but not always. So you can't say for sure quite yet. But a guy who is visiting this late in the portal process likely means that he's going to commit to that school. But we'll just have to wait and see. But very interesting stuff. I don't think anyone expected this to happen this late. Paris Patterson, he had the SMU offensive line transfer. He was thought to be like the final commit there out of the portal. And but now we got another one about a few weeks later. So
yeah, and obviously this guy has some production to his name. Last year, 34 total tackles and a sack. 2024, 29 total tackles and a sack. But in 2021, 81 total tackles, 58 solo, 23 assisted. So he knows how to play some football. He'll be a quality depth piece. 6'1", 230 pounds. He's not exactly a small guy either, so he should provide some valuable depth for the Longhorns there. But on the recruiting trail, Texas also has some pretty big news. Another one that, they just offered him recently, and I didn't necessarily see him as being a part of Texas's plans, but the number one wide receiver in the 2027 class, Monshawn Sales, is visiting Texas as we speak. Texas has really surged with this guy in recent weeks since offering him. He's an Indiana native, obviously is a number one wide receiver. He's one of the most sought after players in the entire class. He's got over 40 offers now at this point. This guy is 6'5", 195 pounds with wheels. He is an absolute freak of nature athletically and size-wise. He had 794 yards on 37 catches and 9 touchdowns, averaging 21.5 yards per reception last season. Hey, if you can add this guy with Easton Royal in the same class, I mean, that's one of the better receiving duos that Texas has ever signed together. And then you add Jermaine Bishop into that conversation as part of the 2026 class. 2 years from next year, you may have the best wide receiver group in the country. Obviously, that's a lot of projection because Easton Royal still has to sign. He's getting courted by a ton of different schools, including LSU, Florida, Miami, and the like. And Monshawn Sales is just because he's visiting, that does not mean he is going to pick Texas. But the fact that they are in the conversation and they have surged this much for this kid is really good news.
Yeah, I mean, just offered him and then he's already on campus. I think that shows that he's potentially interested as well. It's not just a one-sided thing there. And, Monshawn Sales, you talk about it, 6'5", 195. My goodness, he's only going to keep growing. So what is that going to look like once he actually steps foot on a college campus his freshman season? He pretty much just has his choice of where he wants to play college football. And so if you're Texas, being able to put your hat into that ring is a big deal. I do wonder what that official visit schedule could look like. Is Texas going to try to land an official visit this summer? Of course, that early June weekend is a big recruiting weekend for Texas. They already have tons of official visitors. According to 24/7 Sports' visit timeline for Sales, that first week of June appears to be opened up. That 6th and 7th of June I believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's when most of the official visitors are going to be coming, and then later on as well. But maybe Texas tries to squeeze him in there because he is officially visiting Ohio State on June 12th and Miami on June 19th, Alabama on May 29th, Indiana. He's visiting them April 24th. That's only 9 days. So, if the fact that Texas was able to get him on unofficial today is a big deal. We got to wait and see what happens. It's obviously going to be super competitive, but I mean, if you can add this guy, just imagine what the future of that receiving room can look like, especially when you look down the line at what Jermaine Bishop will be able to do potentially by year 2, year 3. I mean, my goodness, talk about an elite receiving core for guys like KJ Lacey and Dia Bell to work with once they grow into their own. We'll just have to wait and see what happens, but pretty massive news.
Yeah. And I don't say this hyperbolically. I don't say this as in this is going to be the case. I just want to put that out there. But there are people out there who have compared him to Calvin Johnson, a.k.a. Megatron. I have to watch his tape. I don't know if anybody is ever going to be Megatron. But at 6'5", 195 pounds, with the wheels that this guy's got, he's got a chance to do something special. And that would be good news for the Texas Longhorns. I can't overstate that enough. But we'll see what happens. He's got a lot, like I said, over 40 offers. A lot of people are courting this guy. We'll see if Texas can end up winning the battle, pairing him hopefully with Easton Royal and Jermaine Bishop. That would be unbelievable, Zach. That would be unbelievable. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast and comment down below on YouTube. It really helps us out in the algorithm and lets us know what you're thinking, what you like. Let us know what you want us to talk about next time. But most importantly, be sure to tell somebody you love them. We'll catch you in the next one.